Welcome, everyone, to another special episode of the Casino Guru webinar series called All Things Gambling. This week is not just about recognizing excellence in the gaming industry, as judges are meeting to pick the winners of prestigious Casino Guru awards. This week is also about crucial topics that shape the gambling industry as a whole. And more specifically, today we're going to talk about the value of research in dealing with gambling problems. My name is Denisa Vidumova, and my special guest today is Matt Smith, Head of External Affairs at Betknowmore. Welcome, Matt. Thank you for coming.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
For those who may not know you, Matt, could you introduce yourself a little bit? Tell us something more about you, about your line of work.
Sure, of course. Yeah. So as you say, I'm Head of External Affairs for Betknowmore. Betknowmore is a UK charity that sits within the National Gambling Support Network. So we host a range of services which are typically peer-based services, peer support. We have programs that are specifically for women, and we have a community outreach program, and then we have our flagship program, which is Peer Aid. My background is actually in the media. Worked in radio and television for 15 years, so it's nice being back in familiar surroundings for me. I worked for a major broadcaster in the UK called TalkSport radio station, where I spent 12 years. And then I worked at some other places after that. But during the latter years of my time at TalkSport, I was suffering with gambling addiction. And so I have lived experience of gambling harm. However, I'm now 9 years in recovery. So just celebrated 9 years on the 5th of November. So I'm able to bring that experience, my own personal experience, into the work that I'm doing now.
Well, congratulations. That's great. That's great. Maybe we can get to this and your personal lived experience a little bit later, but I wanted to start with, as the topic is value of research. So I wanted to stick around for the research. So let me ask you right away. There's been a lot of talk about research, right? Recently, about the value of research in dealing with gambling problems. But is research really a new thing in gambling? Or is it something that has been around for years and it's only now getting the spotlight? What do you think?
I think it's now getting the spotlight. I mean, it's been around for several years, and particularly with conversations that are happening at the moment, what we have to focus on is the independence of research. So we need to make sure that any research that takes place is really independent and externally evaluated, so that we know that it's not coming from a specific angle. The problem we've always had, I think, in the gambling industry, that there's never really been kind of long-term research studies, because it's really difficult to do. So I think that that's held us back a little bit, in the sector, particularly that I work in, that we've not been able to really track journeys for a long period of time because we haven't seen that research. We're quite unique as a charity because we have our own research team in-house, which is headed up by Dr. Liz Riley. And Liz has been around for quite a while. So, it has been there, but I think the spotlight is now coming more on research, and actually, what more can we do in research? We keep asking the same questions, but we need to start now thinking outside of the box a little bit.
And what do you think triggered the recent need for data and evidence-based solutions? I mean, you said that before we hadn't had such a research about long period of time. Why do we need it right now? Is it because we can say for certain right now that old models simply won't work and we need more solutions? Or maybe it's the fact that re-regulation of the market is coming and we may be flying blind if we don't make decisions, backed up by the data.
Yeah, well, I mean, the UK Gambling Commission, for example, have recently come out with a new research study, and they have changed the way that they've looked at their research. They've done it in a different way. And what it's done is it's given different numbers, different outcomes to the way that they've previously done it. So we do need to start looking at those different ways. What's really important is for us as a charity who support people who have experience gambling harm, we need to make sure through research that we are then providing the correct service. So are these services working?
Yeah.
And the way that we can get to that answer is through research and through evaluating the programs and through feedback of the people that come through our services. So, we have got to remember that anything, even for the industry, when they're creating RG tools, what is the next step? We spoke, for example, earlier today, we spoke with Mindwade, who do the artificial intelligence, starting to look at actually what is the pattern of play from players' behaviour. And, that's another element now that's coming in, which we can then start to build new tools around. So I think, all of these things connect together.
As you said, a big part of your career is helping others to overcome their gambling problems, as you have overcome yours.
Yeah.
How is research helping build responsible gambling models? And has research helped or been useful to your line of work at Betknowmore and maybe beyond as well?
Yeah, I mean, that's the bit that I'll start on. So I talked about Dr. Liz Riley, our head of research at Betknowmore, and what happened several years ago is we were approached by a lady called Lisa, and Lisa has lived experience of gambling harm like me. She regularly attended Gamblers Anonymous meetings, but there were no women in those meetings. So she came to us and she said, actually, I think that there is a real need out there for women-specific services to support women who are experiencing gambling harm because they may not feel comfortable talking in an environment where men are there.
Yeah, they may have different experiences, right?
Right, exactly, because for most people who experience gambling harm, it's not just about the gambling, it's about their finances, about relationships, about work, lots of other things. So she approached us and we said, okay, look, we're going to do some research into this and see what the need is for women. So we commissioned a piece of research which Liz undertook, and we then designed a programme out of that research which has recently been commissioned into the National Gambling Support Network. So we now have a programme called New Beginnings, which is really popular programme for women who have experienced harm to connect with other women who have also experienced those harms. So I think that's a really perfect example of where research is really, really helpful. Now, the other thing we did on that is recently we released a podcast called New Beginnings for women. And that podcast has had 10 episodes and has had over 40,000 views on Instagram, the video clips. I've had over 40,000 views, which is incredible, really. So we're reaching lots and lots of people.
So you did something very well, right?
Fantastic,
It seems like when we base our decision-making on actual research, we hit it off. We can do difference. And
and what happened, sorry to interrupt, but what happened as well through that is those women who've come through, some of them may be happy in the future then to engage with the industry and help them to spot the signs in the future and say to them, actually, these are things that you really need to look out for when women are gambling, because their behaviour patterns may be different to men. And if you can look for those, you can then spot them quickly.
Yeah.
So it goes full circle. We're able to say, actually, by having these people who've come through bad times into good times, they can then help to create new tools with operators and just really engage with them about what they can do to improve it and stop harm in the future.
Yeah, absolutely. Yesterday we were talking with Jody, right?
Right.
And she said something very similar, that there's a need for experts in a gambling with lived experience. So I guess that's where we're getting. The women that came forward to those sessions, and they can get to the industry and be there for the others. And the circle that you mentioned is just something that came to mind to me.
It's gone full circle, because what's happened is you've had these people, they've experienced harm, they've then gone through this program of recovery and support, and then some of them are actually employed by us or employed by other charities in the sector. So they're working in the sector. And that was never really the plan for us when we created the program. We thought, okay, the main thing we want to do is support these people and help these people. Yeah. We never thought that they'd want to come and work for us and work in the sector. And they're like, actually, I really enjoy this work now and I want to give something back. Can I come and work for you? So, you know, that was kind of an organic thing that happened. So the way I look at it is, and it's a little bit like somebody like me, I've experienced gambling harm and now I've gone full circle to working in the sector, supporting other people. I mean, I don't do frontline support. That's not what I do. Most of my work is more advocacy work and networking and things like that, and really raising the message and issues that are happening
the awareness,
out there. Yeah. So, but it's great to see that it's gone full circle.
Okay, there's another topic I would like to touch, just slightly. We have seen many companies try to address gambling revenue, right, that comes from harmful sources. But this has proven a very difficult undertaking. There are some, at least two good examples from the industry where companies are vowing to eradicate the issue but are kind of falling short. How can research help them? And do you think business should heed the experience of Betknowmore or other experts in this field, and they can take inspiration from you guys?
Yeah, well, I think that a good example of this, trying to reduce revenue that comes from gambling harm is the work that Kindred are doing and their Journey to Zero project, which I think is a really important piece of work, trying to get to a point where 0% of their profit comes from problematic gambling. And I think that research can be used for good in that. But the research doesn't have to be huge amounts of people. The research, I think, is important if we look at it. A lot of people will look at research from an academic point of view. The way I see it is actually you can do research with a lived experience perspective. So you're actually running things like focus groups where you're talking to a group of people who all have lived experience of gambling in order to research a particular topic and a particular tool. And we've done some work previously with operators where they've said to us, actually, we've got these ideas around responsible gambling tools. Could we speak to some of your lived experience, people who've experienced harm before, and ask them, what do they think of these tools? Do these tools work? Yeah. Now, that is far more effective than some agency designing some tool because it looks good PR-wise. The best thing to do is talk to people who've experienced that thing. That's how many, many other things work in the world. You know, we talk to people who've had experience. If you have a medical problem, you quite often will go online and try and find a community that has experienced the same medical problem so that you can have the same empathy as that, you know, you can empathise with them and they can empathise with you and they have an understanding of what you're going through. And I see as the same thing with the sector that we work in, that you have to have people who've experienced those things. Yes, they've gone through, in some cases, very traumatic situations through their gambling, but then the operators are then able to use that research that they've done with those groups to progress forwards in the future.
And do you think that the industry actually fully understand problem gambling in the industry?
I think it's very difficult to understand fully because it's constantly changing. I mean, the last time I gambled was the 5th of November 2014, so 9 years ago.
You remember it precisely.
A long time. And the gambling industry has progressed a lot since then. I mean, I didn't know back then about a lot of tools that we have now. They didn't exist. You know, I didn't know about things like Gamban, for example, or GamStop or BetBlocker or whatever it might be. And now we have so much more information out there. So I think that the gambling operators, I mean, it's hard to talk for them all because some do far better than ever. And I've given an example of one that I think is trying to do some good work. What I always get a little bit concerned about is that there is sometimes a lot of PR and a lot of noise around. But actually, when you look under the bonnet at what is actually happening, it's not a lot. So I think that we need to talk more, do more, raise more awareness, talk to each other more, which I think is happening. And actually, let's get through that stuff and actually work together to improve things. It's very easy to be a PR person. I mean, I can, I've worked in the media industry for a long time. I know I can tell when somebody's talking and it's not really hitting the right tone. It's trying to send a message out there that is trying to cover up something else.
Okay.
So I think there is a lot more that we can do. But it's a long road. And of course, in the UK at the moment, we have a big piece of work happening because we've got the gambling white paper. So we've got new legislation going through government, which hasn't been updated since 2005. It's a long time. 18 years ago was the last time the Gambling Act. So we're getting new things coming out. But what I think that has given us is an opportunity to engage with more stakeholders and to find out a little bit more about what are the challenges, what are the issues, how can organisations like ours support everybody, really.
Yeah. That was actually my next question about the stakeholders. I wanted to ask if they responded well to Betknowmore initiative or attempt to create a clear line of communication about what has to be done in the industry in terms of safer and responsible gambling and what is actually being done. What would you like to see change in that regard? And as a bonus question, is the Casino Guru Awards helping contribute to more robust communication that Betknowmore is trying to achieve?
Well, I mean, what I would say, first of all, is quite often when we engage with stakeholders, they do listen to us. We have a voice. It's a loud, powerful voice because it's a voice of lived experience. So at Betknowmore now, I think there's 42 staff and over half of those staff have lived experience of gambling, whether that's themselves or they are an affected other, a family member.
Yeah.
And so it's important that we utilise all of those voices and all those voices are heard. And where I see our role has always been, we've been able to be a critical friend to the industry. We've been able to, I mean, we all need a bit of, I mean, sometimes it's a bit annoying, but, you've got that friend who says,
absolutely. And that's a powerful position, you know, because you respect the friend, the critical friend.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I mean, I've got a friend of mine who recently been saying, you've had a week's worth of eating, we've been here where we are now and I've been away the week before. And he was like joking with me, but it was almost like, you do need to be careful when you get home and look after yourself. And we all need that critical friend.
Yeah.
And it's a little bit like how we can work with stakeholders is to say, actually, you know what, this is what we really think. There's no hard feelings between us. We're just telling you what we think and we hope that you would take it on board because it comes from a place of experience. Well, what operators also need to remember is that when a customer leaves them through whatever reason, their journey with that customer ends and they don't know any more information then about that journey. But we do, because they typically come to us for support.
Yeah.
So we pick up the information. So it would be, I think if you look at it from an operator's point of view, they say, actually, that's a piece of information we've never really been able to have before. So we need to actually utilise that experience that they've got. In terms of the awards, I think that we've heard quite a few presentations today already, and I think what is really good for me is to hear about the work that's been done out there. And there was particularly one piece of work that I heard about today, which I thought was really good to hear, that they were going above and beyond what's needed. Now, as I mentioned earlier, and I was talking to one of the other judges about this, what we've been given the opportunity to do here is not just listen, but also let's look into it a little bit more. Is this just PR spin?
Yeah.
Are we being spun around here? Are we breaking through this? Let's have a look at actually what are you doing? What are the action points? Let's look under the bonnet of the car and see what condition the engine's in. And we've been given that opportunity here, which we don't normally get, because you just hear the PR spin about these strategies which don't really exist. So what I've heard, and then I've looked into afterwards, is some positive things happening. So I think that is a real benefit of being, able to participate in these awards as a judge.
Yeah, personally, I truly think that Casino Guru Awards are special in a way how they approach to the picking of their winners, right? The whole process of you meeting and having a short calls with shortlisted contestants, and then learning about how they do things, and as you said, not just the PR agenda that we get to on their website, but actually giving very hard questions to answer to those contestants, and just learning a little bit more about the industry we're in. Maybe I'm biased, but I think it's a great thing to do.
Well, the way I see it as well is that we are all human beings, and you can look at it from, you have one set of people on one side of the fence, you have other set of people on the other side of the fence. But actually, on a human-to-human level, we have far more in common than we might think.
Absolutely.
And I think that that's actually where the connection happens, and where the more interesting conversations are able to take place, because we're able to actually be honest with each other.
Yeah, sure. I would like to stay on the topic of Casino Guru Awards a little bit longer.
Yeah.
They're for sure going to be Casino Guru Awards 2024. Are you going to look for heightened standards among participants, heightened RG standards? Are you going to expect each year more and more?
I think so, because I can't come back to a place 12 months down the line and say, you've already shown us this last year.
Yeah.
What else are you doing? Because you have got to get to a point where you are consistently trying to improve. And actually, from a trust point of view, if you're a gambling operator and you hold the highest standard of safer, responsible gambling, whatever you want to call it, and you hold that in the highest standard, you are the gold standard of that, more players will have trust in you, that you are going to do the right thing by them. And I think that's really important. It's all about trust, isn't it? How many people these days go online and read reviews for a restaurant before you go to it? Yeah. Everybody does it now, And you're always going to get one or two who aren't happy with service or whatever. But if you can maintain yourself as a gold standard, and that you're able to really say, you know what, we're going above and beyond. These are the types of things we're doing. These are the initiatives we're doing. These are the organisations that we're supporting. I heard one operator, for example, today about the support that they have for a not-for-profit. Now, I listened to that and I thought, actually, that's a really good piece of work that's happening there. So there are instances where you have to say, actually, 12 months down the line, how have we got better? Because you don't want to get worse.
Exactly. Yeah, it's only logical.
Yeah.
Okay, I guess last question from me to sum it all up, maybe, but I'm going to admit it's maybe a hard one. We were talking about responsible gambling standards, and my question is, are RG standards subject to a change over time? You know what I mean? Like, why can we establish a clear guidance once and for all? Why do we keep going back to drawing board?
Well, I think there's a regulatory issue there, that we've got so many different markets and so many different regulators. And if you just look at the US, for example, has loads of different states, loads of different regulators. In Europe, we have lots of different regulators. In the UK, where I'm from, we have our regulator. So I think it's very difficult to try and get to some kind of, standard between everybody because of the different types of regulation.
Yeah, so it doesn't work like one shoe fits all.
It's not.
Yeah,
It's not. And it's like the space that I work in terms of prevention and support for people. There is no one size fits all. Everybody needs a personal kind of, almost like a personal structure to their support.
Yeah.
Like the support that worked for me might not work for somebody else. That's how we have to think about it. So I think that when you're looking at the kind of the regulatory space, that everybody's different. But what I am seeing is there are a lot more regulators now coming together and talking to each other. So
collaborating.
And collaborating and actually saying, you do this really well, we should be doing the same, and vice versa.
Yeah.
So I think that when you look at that, there is starting to be a joined up approach. If I use as an example from a charity, from a not-for-profit point of view, the work we are starting to do in North America, for example, with our colleagues at the Massachusetts Council for Gaming and Health, we have very shared values and we're learning from each other. We would never go into another market and say, actually, we know best.
Yeah.
We're learning from each other. So I think that's really important when you look at regulators and you look at how you can get everybody joined up together, that they're all learning from each other.
Absolutely. Great point, Matt. Thank you for sharing and thank you for coming once again. It's been lovely. And hopefully even conversation like this will help in the path of more responsible and informed gambling landscape. So thank you very much again for coming.
Thanks for having me.
And thank you all who watched this webinar till the end for being a part of conversation. Leave us a comment below about your opinion and your thoughts on the research and how it can help gambling industry. And in the meantime, you can look forward to our next special interview with Tracy Parker. Thank you and see you later.